Thank you so very much for tuning in to this month installment of the 19 Report. I am your host, Brother Johnny. I walked a thin line between right and wrong, took my fears to God, then I wrote this song. The spirit kept calling, so I answered the phone, and then I manned up and got some backbone. My mind resonates at a much higher tone, solid foundation, empire zone. 3 mountains, I'm in one, right to left counted, 9 and then 1, left to right switch it, 1 and then 9, west to east, south to north, a thin line. I know Christ exists, cause his mercy allows me a chance to stand 3 on a square. Yeah, we in there. This is Brother Johnny of Groove 19 Promotions. Thank everyone for tuning in. This is Jamil Salib Zamir out of Manning, South Carolina. First of all, I want to thank everyone for your support. If you have not joined up with us yet on YouTube, please join up with us on YouTube at the 19 Report or / Johnny Wilson. Just type in the 19 Report in your search engine. It should pop right up on our YouTube channel. We are, again, our partners in a partnership with YouTube, and also we have perks on YouTube, so you'll be able to donate live as we are broadcasting, and we're offering different perks for members of our page. You will be receiving, for your donations, different designs from our design company, the shirts, No Ego Custom Shirts, Overachiever, No I in Team, Strive, Wabi Sabi. All of these things will be you'll be able to receive these things. Also, along with personal videos that we will be sending out, music from us we will be sending out only to our members. As a thank you to all that you're doing, you'll be receiving these things periodically as donations begin to come in, because when you're doing this kind of work, you have to make this work a job, because this takes up 8, 9, 10 hours of your day. I've been watching documentary films all day. That's something that I love to do, but most people can't handle that. So I try to look at them and break them down and put them into pieces and give it back to the public, along with reading and other things. So we're going to get started today. I want to talk today about identity and its importance in drug addiction and fighting drug addiction, dealing with drug addiction, and dealing with getting lost in someone else's reality and following them. And our next part to this series will be peer pressure. That'll be part 5. So right now we're talking about self-identity. By identifying yourself, you will be able to say, no, I'm not going to do that because that's not who I am, or yes, I want to do it because I'm interested in doing it. But I want to read this first of all, pertaining to identity and addiction. This is from Psychology Today. This is from Shahram Hesmat, PhD, and it is on Psychology Today. Again, that's something that I always love to do, to study psychology and the way the mind works. But identity and addiction, self-identity as a possible pathway to recovery. Once we are able to find ourselves, once we're able to identify who we are and what we're trying to achieve out of life, the journey back to where we're supposed to start as a child, we got to go back to that point as an adult and start back over. And that is something most people are not willing to do. We talked about that on yesterday. And on yesterday, we brought up a lot of points about a lot of secret government groups that are in cahoots with drugs. I want to say this off top, that the war on drugs was never won. We never beat the war on drugs in America. In fact, the war on drugs began with LSD and marijuana. And in 2000, and that was during the Nixon era. And in 2022, marijuana has been made legal because they could not stop the marijuana. They did not want to stop it. So since everyone wants to be an addict, Since everyone wants the marijuana, let's give it to them and let's tax it. And it'll be the same way with other drugs. They're going to start to introduce LSD. They're going to start to introduce mollies. They're going to start to introduce heroin in small doses. They're constantly working on making this a drugged out, mindless society, so that all we want to do is forget who we are. We don't want to self-identify. All of this stuff is documented. It's right. It's nothing that I'm saying that's secret. It's documented. So the war on drugs has never been won, never will be won. But my thing is, the crisis is only identified, the crisis is only brought to the forefront when it's in predominantly white areas. This is not racism. I pointed that out before. This is fact. When we were watching our mothers and daughters and sons and grandmothers across town in Manning, South Carolina, get addicted to crack cocaine by people in the community who sold them crack cocaine. And as a child, you saw and I'm making it graphic because it has to be graphic. As a child, you saw your mother bend over for your friend and give him herself for drugs and money. We saw families fall apart right before our eyes. We saw people die right across town right before our eyes. We saw families turn against each other. We saw people die. We saw homes destroyed. And then we saw an entire community decimated and gentrified. All of that went on over there is gone because of that crack cocaine. But we saw the police come. We needed them at the time to break up the cycle of death. And through all of that, counseling and a cure for drugs was not available in the black neighborhood by black people, but the recovery drug center, which is still there, I think by the Roses, was implemented by a church. And we were able to use the facilities. So we do not identify with ourselves, with our issues. The only thing we identify with is ghetto life and convincing ourselves that this is how life is supposed to be. So in Psychology Today, it says people going through life transitions such as loss of home or family ties and mental issues suffer a loss of identities. We suffered through life's transitions as children, my sons, my daughters, all went through it, all probably addicted to something or have low self-esteem. Yours too, you too, me too. I suffered from seeing my father, an absentee father, addicted to alcohol, which is a gateway drug, introducing it to my mother. She couldn't handle it. She got addicted to alcohol and cigarettes and would choose a cigarette over getting medication. All of these things trickling down, and we never identify. It was when my mother, God rest her soul, was dying that I found out she told me. Now, we have conflicting stories with that within the family, but she told me she desired to go to college and be a clerical worker. She wanted to be administrative assistant or secretary, but she never reached that goal because children came, responsibility came, and a loss of identity came. And you see the light of people die when their identity is lost. And so with our children, I got a 14-year-old son. I try my best to get him to understand that you might get lost in what you desire. It may never happen. Don't get so caught up in that you get so lost that you lose yourself. And around 13, 14, 15, up until 20 or 30, this is when we start taking drugs to try to ease the pain of not achieving in life what we desired. So people going through life transitions such as loss of home or family ties and mental illnesses suffer a loss of identities. The change involves a sense of loss of continuity and confusion about one's social role. For example, a depressed person does not believe he or she has the capability or control over her or his environment to reach goals anymore. When you don't feel like you can reach a goal, we look outside of ourselves at someone else who has appeared to have reached their goal. Normally in the ghetto, it's the drug dealer or a politician or a preacher, and we desire to be them, but that's not us. So we give our lives to them, and whatever they say we should do, whatever they say we should be, is what we attempt to be, and become more and more depressed because we're not finding ourselves. Any man in search of knowledge or woman is on the right path until they return. When you decide that it's nothing there for me or I've reached my end, you die mentally. Over time, they internalize the symptoms as a part of who they are. However, the presence of strong social support and friends can help to provide a positive sense of social identity. Now, most of us during our periods across town and other areas, our friends was not telling us not to do something. Our so-called friends were eager to get us involved because misery loves company. You got to have it. I had an associate of mine who every night passing me the marijuana, I'm going to get you to smoke. I'm going to get you to smoke. No, because I know what I am and I know what I am not, and that I am not. I'll sell it, but I'm not going to smoke it. In a similar vein, addiction represents an identity loss. I'm going to say that again. The same way we lose our identity because of other issues, in that same arena, that same vein, addiction represents an identity loss. What I'm saying is that everyone is trying to be successful now. Everyone wants to appear to be somebody now. Every family wants it to appear as if though all of my children are successful now. In white communities, children are being doped up every day on ADHD, ADD drugs, and those pills have heroin in them. Heroin. The same elements that make up heroin are the same elements that are in most of your pills that are taken for anxiety, ADHD, and all of these other things. And when you can't get these pills, when it's not enough, you double up, triple up, quadruple up. And when that's not enough, you go to street drugs. But we are going to hide that, because the thing about the Caucasians, about whites, that I appreciate is that when a crisis comes, they put it at the forefront, they talk about it, and they look for solutions. In black communities, when a crisis comes, we hide it. And we're still hiding it. This is my point. Our children are addicted to drugs in one form or another, and it will manifest itself. What's in the dark will come to the light. Our young children are under extreme stress with school and identity crisis, and thinking they know more than they know and getting caught up the stress level. The Bible says that children will be gray-headed because they will be taking on the world as if though they can handle it, but they cannot. So at 13 and 14, these will be the new faces of addicts. Young girls high on marijuana at 12, 10, high on mollies at 10 or 9. And we don't see the signs of this because we have not exited the matrix or the bubble that we have comfortably placed around ourselves. And it's not until it's too late that we begin to say there's a problem, and the first thing we do is kick them out of the home because we don't know how to address a problem, take them to the church, pray for them, or whatever, but we don't know how to deal with the problem. In a similar vein, addiction represents an identity loss. Our children are lost. You're going to see this on the rise in the black community. It's already happening. This fentanyl, Oxycontin, oxycodone, heroin epidemic has been going on for 30 years. This is not something new. These drugs, cocaine, are considered preppy drugs because you don't look the part. But you're going to begin to look the part with fentanyl because of what it does to the mind and the body. It takes you totally out of yourself. You are a different you. You are the opposite of you. You're calm, relaxed, you high. You don't think about nothing until you need another fix. So, in a similar vein, addiction represents an identity loss, and that overcoming such loss requires some form of identity reconstruction. In the Nation of Islam, we were taught right off top, right from the beginning, first, love yourself. First, love yourself. That was the first thing we were taught. Accept your own and be yourself. Who is yourself? Yourself is, you might be hanging with Fred for 10 years, but you might outgrow Fred because you need to climb higher, or you need to go back down to identify who you are. Your journey in life, as teaches the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is, and as teaches the Bible and Quran, you will be journeying through life finding yourself until you die. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that you don't even know what your purpose in life is until you're around 75 years old. The Bible says, yea, though I walk through the valley and shadow of death, every time we have to transition into something different, it's like we die. So we get afraid. So the book says, yea, though I walk through the valley and shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. This says that you must have people around you, according to Psychology Today, who will comfort you and help you transition. That's what a parent is. But the world is teaching children you don't need your parents. So children are thinking they don't need us. This is nothing new. This has been going on. This is where we live. This is America. Government wants to control every facet of life. Take the children away. Teach them something opposite of what we know is truth. Since we got to this country, books and words we were not allowed to have until the books and the words were manipulated to make us subservient. And once you lose your identity, if someone gives you something that makes you to think no more about who you are, what you desired out of life, just you're numb, you're lethargic. If you get that, then you will be addicted to it. So, some addicts identify themselves as addicts. The self-identification can explain in part why addicts use drugs despite negative consequences. They don't care. For these individuals, recovery requires forming a new identity involving study, involving work, involving family roles to replace their former substance-using identity. So if you are not around people who are helping you to transition from what you were, and if you're not strong enough to have the mindset that I must change myself, we will never be successful in trying to stop an addiction. I am a recovering addict, but I'm an addict for the rest of my life. And I know by God's permission that what I had to do was make up in my mind, I don't want to be an addict, no matter how good it felt. There's something wrong with me being asleep 8 hours a day, and my children, I'm sleeping in the room with them and they looking at whatever they want to look at, doing whatever they want to do. I'm not being an effective parent. Identity change can be an important tool for behavior change. For example, breaking ties with one existing social group and developing identification with non-using groups. Research suggests that the change from an addiction identity to a recovery identity is a critical ingredient in successful treatment. Accept your own and be yourself. Find your identity. Find what you desire to do and be in life, and utilize those desires to fight the addiction, and utilize those desires to not even start an addiction. I want to read this one thing real quick. This is from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It says, one of the greatest handicaps among the so-called Negroes is that there is no love for self, nor love for his or her own kind. This not having love for self is the root cause of hate, disunity, disagreement, quarreling, betraying, stool pigeon, snitching, and fighting and killing one another. How can you be loved if you have not love for self and your own nation, and dislike being a member of your own? Then what nation will trust you or love your membership? If you prove to other people you call yourself a nigger, why would you get upset when someone call you what you call yourself? Why would you get angry with the white man for having a black woman when you put her on the strip to sell her body for money? We lost our identity. There is no love for self. In the community, you can sell my mama drugs. I can sell your mama drugs. I can sleep with your mama. I can sleep with your sister. I can lay with your brother. I can turn him gay. I can do all these things, because without self-identity, you're not going to fight against any of the evils of this world. You're going to become conducive to. You're going to agree with them. Do you understand what I'm telling you? We're talking about fentanyl, the drug. We are addressing the drug from the internal perspective of each individual. There will be 7 parts to this. This is part 4, self-identity. All 3 parts are up on my Facebook page, but I did get word that, once again, I told you, Facebook told me that they were blocking me. YouTube told me that they were blocking me in certain countries. They didn't stop my page, but they blocked a lot of the content. And I don't know if they blocked me here, but I do know if any of you get a hold of the feed and just share it one time and get me from behind that wall, people can see what I'm saying and we can share this information, because a crisis in white society, they start fighting it early. A crisis in the black community, we don't ever fight it. We hide it. So the war on drugs has been going on for 30 years or more. Longer than that. Decades. And we watched our families destroyed. A few people made some money. We got impressed by them. Detroit is destroyed. That was the black bottom. That was Detroit. That was our city. Motor City. Chicago, our city. DC was Chocolate City. All of them now destroyed with drugs and violence. All of them gone. New York, the Bronx, Brooklyn, all of these places, the South, Florida. This is not by an accident. And this new drug, fentanyl, the 80s, the 30s, pressed by Chinese people, brought into the country by Mexicans, and used by black people to destroy us. Nobody likes you because you don't like yourself. We self-mutilate. We have no identity. When you shave your eyebrows and draw on some more, you're self-mutilating. When you cut your eyelashes and put on an afro on your eyelash, self-mutilating. When you put on a lot of makeup, you're mutilating. That is witchcraft. That is a sure sign that you don't like yourself. So in the family unit, I can sell you drugs. I can kill you because we don't identify. Let's move on. I'm not going to stay on too long today. You say of yourself, I love everybody. This cannot be true. Love for self comes first. There's no way you can love another race of people or even a God before you love yourself. The book says, how can you say that you love a God whom you have never seen and hate people that you see every day? You're a people. I'm a person. We hate ourselves, but we love something we can't see. No identity. You don't want to identify with righteousness at all. I'm talking to my people now. You want Jesus to be white? You want every prophet to be white? You want every messenger, every intelligent person, every inventor? You want them all to be white. So if a person says something about black outside of February, you get angry with them. You can't love nobody if you don't love yourself. According to 1 Peter 2:17, John 15:17, love of self comes first. The one who loves everybody is the one who does not love anybody. This is fact. We're talking about self-identity because these drugs we're taking into our body and destroying ourselves because we're disappointed. Everybody wants to be successful in life. Everybody wants to feel that the things that this world says we're supposed to have, we should be able to achieve. But lying to ourselves is what has caused us to devolve to the point where we are. From the time in the Garden of Eden when Adam didn't just say to God, yes, I ate it. Adam said, I did it, but it's this woman that you gave me. She the one who enticed me to do it. We're liars. And in the black community, because we follow someone else's blueprint, we're born liars. So your minister, and listen, I'm not attacking church. Christians who know me know better. My biggest financial base is from Christian believers in Christianity. I am a Christian. I love God. So I'm not talking about it in that way. But black people, when the preacher rapes the little girl, we hide it. That's the preacher. You don't tell on the preacher. But the little girl has to suffer and she ends up on drugs. The greatest movie, one of the greatest movies I've ever seen, Woman, Thou Art Loose, produced by T.D. Jakes, talks about that subject. Now, I want to play a clip real quick, if I can, to show you how this drug, fentanyl, has decimated the white community and and they put their stories on the internet. They put their stories out there for people to see. Most of the people that I talk with online, they're white people. Black folks are not going to say, yes, I'm an addict. Yes, I need help. We die with a lie. We lie till we die. We won't say, yes, I contracted HIV. All of these things are a product of drug use because promiscuous sex is easier when you're drunk or high. You just fall over. Most filthy men don't care if you throwing up while they getting a little bit, but they are poisoning you with their poison seed. And the next thing you know, you're HIV positive. You have full-blown AIDS, but you won't tell your story. You take it to the grave because something made us think that because we lie about it, it goes away. We don't think about it, it's gone. And if you bring it up, you the devil. We are very confused people. But white folks will tell their story because they want sympathy, empathy, support, and knowledge. So I want to play this clip. It's about 3 minutes and 2 seconds, a story of a young girl who got addicted to fentanyl or pain pills the same way I got addicted. I was hurt. I took some medicine. I liked the feeling. So let's get into this. I'm going to play this and you'll be able to hear it on Instagram. Again, we are broadcasting on Facebook, on Twitter this time, and on YouTube. And I encourage you to go to our YouTube site and join our page there, as we are in a partnership with YouTube and now in a membership with them. And we'll be able to offer perks and different things that you will be receiving from us for your donations. So we're asking for donations on the site, and you'll be receiving some personal content, music and shirts and different designs and things of that nature as a thank you for your support for this page. So let's go into this clip real quick.
This is the new young face of fentanyl addiction, before and after. 22-year-old Katie Mather, forehead and chin clawed open by her own fingernails because the use of fentanyl makes her skin crawl. I spot her on the Strip, Surrey's infamous drug hangout, and ask if she'll talk to me. She puts cover-up on her raw skin.
So I'm literally just doing my mascara and I'm good to go.
Katie settles in to tell her story.
There we go. Perfect.
How she ended up living on the street 3 months ago, addicted to fentanyl.
Well, I've been using, it's actually funny, well, not funny, it's terrible. I have a really addictive personality. I've always been like addicted to something, whether it was shopping or Facebook or whatever. And I did an oxy. I got addicted right away. And then I finally found a regular dealer and I started picking up all the time. I remember the day the fentanyl came out and my dealer said, you know, I've got these new pills. They're fake oxys. He didn't tell me they were fentanyl because nobody knew what fentanyl was yet. He just said they're 100 times stronger and they're only $5 more. And I was just like, okay, because I was getting a pretty high tolerance at this point.
Oxys, OxyContin, led to fake 80s, fentanyl posing as OxyContin. Immediately, Katie wanted nothing else.
I could buy one of these fake 80s, put them into 4 lines, and 2 lines would last me a full day. That's how strong it was. And if I did a full pill, I would OD.
Katie says she's overdosed 11 times, most recently a few days ago. Brought back by paramedics or friends on the Strip who have naloxone, the powerful opioid antidote.
Every time I do dope, I know I'm taking a risk. I know that I might die, but it doesn't matter how many times I've OD'd. I still use the next day because the withdrawals are so bad.
Katie has been in the news before. She and her sister attacked by a Rottweiler cross back in December. Katie was badly hurt and spent time in hospital. She says that cemented her addiction to fentanyl. As she talks, blood starts to seep through her makeup.
Katie, you're 22. Why would you risk this?
Well, at first it was just fun, right? It was just for fun. It was just a party drug that, and there's been some things that I've gone through and it helped with a lot of pain. And especially after, that dog attack, I just couldn't stop,
I ask Katie if she worries about herself and her future.
Sometimes. I don't know. I just like to take things one day at a time, right? Kind of just go with it and hopefully, hope for the best.
For now, the best Katie can hope for is to wake up from her next fix of fentanyl. Eric Rankin, CBC News, Surrey.
Okay.
She takes a picture, and in that picture is this ET.
We're going to stop right there on that. I want to say this real quickly, though. We have children who get addicted to popping pills. Again, you don't smell drugs on them because it's not marijuana. You don't smell alcohol. You don't smell cigarette because it's a pill. And when your child, my child starts going out all times of night, can't sit still, gotta defy you and change their attitudes and the way they behave at home all of a sudden. Sometimes these young girls and boys are in debt to a drug dealer. And that dealer says, if you don't give me my money, then you're going to give me sex. You're going to work that money off through sex. And sometimes, because our children have mental problems that we don't want to address, all of my children got mental problems because I got mental problems. But I learned how to stay from around people, and I learned how to keep my mouth shut. When people aggravate me, I just tell them, listen, I'm not going to talk to you for the next 5 days, because if I do, something's going to happen. But a child's mind is not mature enough to deal with things on an adult level. And until a person is 25 to 30 years old, they're still acting partly on that child mind. That's why some of us, our brains are disrupted so quickly at 9, 10, 11, we never develop into full adults. You're looking at 40, 50, 60-year-old children. But when they owe money to the street, the person they owe the money to cannot allow them to keep jiving them. But in their mind, I'm so tough, I can talk my way out of anything. Eventually, you might find your child dead or being shot or being murdered because they owe for these drugs that they've been taking that we aren't even fully aware of. This is fact. This is truth. We got to get to in the black community in particular. I want to say this. I've reached out to several people about the Narcan and the other drugs for fentanyl overdose. And the reason I'm doing that is because the epidemic has reached us. We just don't know it yet. And by the time we open our eyes to the reality that it's here in our homes, in our community, I got about 3 of my children in high school who were snorting cocaine. They mama don't even know. I knew. Just so happens they were snorting coke and doing things like that because they were confused identity crisis. The pressures of trying to be something that the parents were not. And the first thing we're going to tell our children, don't you go out there and embarrass me. You embarrass me. All about us. Again, these things, Molly's, Oxycontin, they used to have the bowl they called, what did they call the bowl of drugs they put on the table? They call them Skittles. You just take all the drugs out of the medicine cabinet and put them in a bowl. You pop whatever you want to pop. They started making the Molly, so it's a party drug. Young folks think that they can party these drugs. They sweat it out in the club, and you see them in pictures talking about they lit, and it's a movie, and their eyes popped open because their bodies are filled with this stuff. Now they're introducing on the slide these 80s and 30s of fentanyl, synthetic fentanyl. Somebody just put it together, and they cut that stuff with talcum powder, Drano, whatever they can cut it with. We are in a crisis. We are always in a crisis in the black community, but we always say Jesus will take care of it. But God does not help someone who does not help themselves. I'm going to say it again. God does not, it says it in the book. By helping ourselves, we have to have the mental, the fortitude to go forward, regardless as to what people say. We have to have the knowledge. We have to have the faith. And we have to have the finances. But what's going to happen in the black community is that this fentanyl is going to make millionaires. And marijuana was the gateway drug to desensitize us to caring. So when you look on Facebook and other social medias, don't nobody care about nothing. I don't care. I don't need no friends. I don't care. So once you are desensitized, this is how it's going to play out, according to what God has given me. You're desensitized. You don't care if it's your mama, because you don't like your mama. You don't care if it's your daddy. You don't like your brothers. You don't like your sisters. You don't care. So when the temptation comes of taking 50 fentanyl synthetic pills and buying those 50 pills for $5, you pay $250 to get the pills. You sell the pills at a markup of $50 per pill. Lord have mercy. Man, I can't even do the math. Might be $500,000. off of 50 pills. And I may be exaggerating that, maybe $5,000. My math is all, I don't have a calculator in front of me. But nobody's going to turn down that amount of money, even if it's your mama. You will sell your mama drugs for that price. And I seen how low we go from living across town. I saw it. You saw it. We witnessed it firsthand. Not that our parents were bad parents, but that they were addicted. And they would do anything to get that fix. But this new drug is a quiet drug. Fentanyl is the no snitching drug because nobody knows you are addicted. I'm going to show you some footage in the days to come of people that you would never know where you were addicted to fentanyl and who died from it. Identity crisis and self-concept. One self-concept, also called self-construction, self-identity, self-perceptive, self-perspective, or self-structure, is a collection of beliefs about oneself. Generally, self-concept embodies the answer to the question, who am I? And when we get hooked on drugs and when we can't get ourselves out of that condition, what do we say about ourselves? I'm a hoe. I'm a bitch. I ain't nobody. I ain't nothing. I'm better off dead. I don't care. This all is by design. All of this is by design. And we are in a cycle of death that will only get quieter, but more deadly. Quieter, but more deadly. Most of our street, the fellas in the street, that all gangs, most of them are already hooked on fentanyl. Most of them are addicts. Hooked on Oxy, Percocets, Mollies, cocaine, heroin. They're hooked already. You can see the dead in their face, the dead in their eyes. Those are our children. They're not coming back from the abyss. And their sperm is poisoned with the same poison, and they are making babies. So our future is grim, non-existent. Because what I'm telling you is from the street level all the way up to college, doctors and lawyers will be addicts. And if not addicts, they're going to disassociate themselves from you, from us. Self-concept is distinguishable from self-awareness, which refers to the extent to which self-knowledge is defined. We can't separate ourselves from what we do and who we are. Who are you? I'm a police officer. No, that's what you do. Who are you? I'm a photographer. No, that's what you do for a living. Who are you? Oh, I work at a convenience store. No. That's what you do. That's not who you are. But you think that's who you are because that's who we self-awareness, our self-awareness says that's who I am. I'm Dr. So-and-so. I'm Officer so-and-so. I'm Minister so-and-so. We have to look within ourselves, dissolve our ego, and find out who we are, what our purpose is in life. To thine own self be true. I am a William Shakespeare buff because William Shakespeare say things in a sly way. As a matter of fact, he wrote some things in the Bible. William Shakespeare wrote some parts of the Bible. All true. The origin of to thine own self be true is a phrase in one of countless famous quotes coined by William Shakespeare in Act 1, Scene 3 of the famous play Hamlet. To thine own self be true. So we got to begin to say, listen, I was going through a situation and we're going to close. And I realized that I had to admit to myself, I'm scared. I'm a coward. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to take this even further, and I'm going to call one of my brothers, and I'm going to explain the situation to them and tell them, man, look, this thing scared me. And I got so weak till I got butterflies in my stomach, and if it were to escalate, I would have lost because I was a coward. I cowered. But in doing that, God's mercy was already on me because we got to turn to something bigger than ourselves to find ourselves. This journey, each individual has to take by themselves. But we are not strong enough to take the journey. And unfortunately, our religious leaders are telling us, grab my hand, I'll take you. Proof of that is when Moses led the children of Israel to the promised land. He said, grab my hand, I'll take you. Trust me, right? But they complained the whole way. And all of the old ones died in the desert because they would not take on their own personal journey. Jesus says to his disciples, it is expedient that I go away from you. If I don't leave, you're not going to learn nothing. Children have to leave home to find themselves. We all have to have separate lives to keep ourselves identified. But when you begin to make yourself, I'm just a father, I'm just a mother, you lose yourself. And without your identity, you're going to need something to self-medicate, okay? Find yourself. That's the point of today. That's the point of this whole thing, because without that, we will not be able to fight any addiction. Now, I want to read this real quickly out of Psychology Today. About our identity. And I'm reading it in part, then we're going to close. The problem is this. If we change while our self-image remains the same, then there will be a deep abyss between who we are and who we think we are, and this leads to conflict. If we change while our self-image remains the same, if you want to be different in your mind, but you constantly hanging with the same group of people who only give you the same stuff you're trying to get away from, there will be a conflict. You must change your environment. You must do things different. We must know when it's time to leave. That's the problem with young black boys and girls at parties. They don't know when to leave. 5 o'clock in the morning, they still there. They're over drunk, over high. Then someone gets killed. There is a time when you got to say, it's time to go. I've got to get back into my reality. I got children at home. I got a husband at home. I got a life. I got to go to work. The same thing with people who dedicate themselves to church and other things. You must have an identity beyond that. That's why most of the women in the church can't find a man. You're putting too much standards on them that are unrealistic. We're in an identity crisis. So we must identify ourselves. To make things worse, and I'm closing, we are exceptionally good at dismissing even the possibility that we might change. We dismiss the possibility. I ain't gonna never change. Jay-Z had a song, never, 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 never change. Say, I never change. This is Jay every day. But the people around him changed. He got rid of Dame. He got rid of Biggs. He kept Tata. He kept, what's the other one name? Memphis Bleak. He was dissing Nas, but then hired Nas on his team. So Jay didn't change, but his circumstances and surroundings had to change because he wanted to grow to a different level than the people around him. That's that shadow of death that most of us are afraid to walk through. We go, we turn around. We go, we turn around. We go out and we end up right back in the hood, right back where the drugs are, right back where the people who were destroying us are. We do it in our churches and every place else. So then we end up losing our identity. And as a church member, you can't, when I was out in the street, we used to see all the church members, and we used to see the politicians and all of them out there partying with us. All of them partying with us. To make things worse, we are exceptionally good at dismissing even the possibility that we might change. There is no way you can be the same person that you were 20 years ago and talking about, God, I need a change. No way. No way. You deliberately stayed where you were because of we get caught in suspended animation and fear. And because we are stuck there, as we said on yesterday, we take drugs to make us believe that we are different, that we have advanced, but you ain't went nowhere. That's why our young people talk about being rich and working a 9-to-5. You never be rich working a 9-to-5. That's why they talk about they're the best killers, they're the best drug dealers. That's why the church says that if you think it, you can achieve it. And that same preacher is broke all his life. There's only a small amount of people that make it out of this thing. In closing, psychologists have given this phenomenon a fancy name: the end of history illusion. We all think that who we are now is the finished product. We will be the same in 5, 10, 20 years. But as these psychologists found, this is a complete delusion. Our preference and value will be very different already in the not so distant future. You're going to change and change and change. And each time we change, we're going to get afraid because it's an area that we are not accustomed to. And once you lock yourself into a place, you're dead. You flatlined. You will not beep. Because the line goes growth, decline, lesson. Growth, decline, lesson. And we're saying, I don't want to grow because I ain't want to do all that work. I ain't going back down, and I'm tired of learning. I done did my 12 years in school. Without self-identity, drugs is the only way to cope in the matrix that we are stuck in. I thank you all for tuning in to this installment of the 19 Report, and like it is on self-identity, the fentanyl crisis, why it's so easy for us to get addicted, and why we are the main target as black people, the main test dummies. China produces it, Mexico transports it, black folks in the hood sell it. We got happy with the title of plug. I'm the plug. I'm the guy in the hood that gets everybody tore up. Come get the drugs from me because I got to connect with the connect. See how dysfunctional we are? Remember on yesterday we talked about dysfunctional identity, dysfunctional society? We're dysfunctional. Everything bad for us, we have tried our best to make it good because we don't want to work no harder. Thank you for tuning in. Jamil Salif Zamir, Manning, South Carolina.
Thank you so very much for tuning in to this month installment of the 19 Report. I am your host, Brother Johnny. I walked a thin line between right and wrong, took my fears to God, then I wrote this song. The spirit kept calling, so I answered the phone, and then I manned up and got some backbone. My mind resonates at a much higher tone, solid foundation, empire zone. 3 mountains, I'm in one, right to left counted, 9 and then 1, left to right switch it, 1 and then 9, west to east, south to north, a thin line. I know Christ exists, cause his mercy allows me a chance to stand 3 on a square. Yeah, we in there. This is Brother Johnny of Groove 19 Promotions.